Shalom, family. Good to see everybody here. Hope you're doing well. Boy, it's so many things going on. It is not even funny. And it's like at one point it kind of slowed down for me. And now it's like I can't even keep up with all the stories coming out. So, anyway, NASA has shut down the website that it was giving updates on 3I Atlas. And, just look at the timing of this government shutdown, y'all. Just look at the timing. October was the month they were chattering about all through September that 3I Atlas would reach Mars and reach the sun by around the 29th of the month. And just a coincidence, which I don't believe in, October 1st, the government shuts down and they said this is gonna be a long one. I really think they don't want anybody to see this thing coming. They know it's not a comet. They know it's not a comet. They know it is something they have never seen before, and I think Donald Trump, his biggest hangups is the Epstein files. If the government is shut down, nobody's talking about the Epstein files. It's not in the media. And if NASA is no longer doing updates, then they're hoping you're going to forget about seeing this thing come. But from what I'm looking at out there, people are going to other sources because you can go to the Europeans, they have the ESA, and the ESA is still reporting on it. So, or you can go to a non-government website that is still reporting on 3I Atlas. And I was listening to a couple of scientists, and they were saying, those satellites that NASA have out there, to pick up on objects and stuff, they don't have access to that now. Do you think this is done deliberately? I do. I really do. Because they said they have probes near Mars that could easily get a good picture of what, 3I Atlas look like, but they don't have access to it now because of the government shutdown. I don't think they want the public to see it, but there are other ways you can see it. There's a lot of amateurs with telescopes that are powerful enough to pick up on it. In fact, I watched one guy's last night and he had one of those big telescopes and he was outside with it and he aimed around where 3I Atlas was. You know what it looked like, y'all, in the sky? The image I saw, it looked almost like a stingray. He showed a couple of images and he said, "This is it." It looked almost like a stingray. And so, there are still gonna be foreign sites that will still have this stuff up. So you just won't get it from NASA. So they made the announcement that there'll be no more updates on their site. Now, the budget office, which funds all government agencies, is closed. So that's why NASA is not able to get any funding right now. And plus, they would have to work for free, as long as the government is shut down. And I'm sure the scientists don't wanna work for free. No, I'm sure they don't. Thank you, Loretta, for the super sticker. You know, I just think they fear a lot of these things that are going on right now. That's my opinion. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I do have some videos I wanna show you. Uh, Here we go. All right. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you. And I do have, another upcoming live stream that I'm working on right now. It is a pastor that defended Charlie Kirk, and he has died 16 days after Charlie Kirk, after defending him on the internet. So, and yes, it's a black pastor. So I'm gonna get to that one because that one is really interesting. And I thank the people that have sent that story to me. Yes, he's an evangelical conservative black pastor, and he just passed away. Charlie Kirk, I think, died on the 10th, and he died, I think, either the 25th or 26th. He died not long after Charlie, and after defending him online, of all things. So, yes, yeah, Vody, yeah. You know who I'm talking about. I have that coming up. Yeah, and I was reading he had some heart issues. In fact, he had a quadruple bypass. I was reading at the age, I think he had that when he was like around 51 years old. So his heart was quadruple bypass. Yeah, he had a bad heart, definitely. All right, y'all. Thank you. Let's get to this story. I guess one story at a time.
At exactly midnight on October 1st, 2025, NASA's official voice vanishes. The agency's homepage declares a government shutdown just as 3I/Atlas, only the third interstellar visitor ever detected, enters its once-in-a-lifetime window for Mars observation. Public data streams cut to black at the very hour the cosmos delivers its rarest messenger, leaving only European orbiters and silent American eyes tracking a comet millions of kilometers from home. Was this outage a perfect bureaucratic storm or something more? When the stakes are this cosmic and the silence this total, what aren't we seeing? And how does anyone separate coincidence from cover-up? The clock has started, and the receipts are about to be tested. A rare visitor from beyond the solar system does not wait for human calendars. In the pre-dawn hours of October, as the world's most powerful space agency falls silent, a fragment of another star's debris cloud crosses the Martian orbit. 3 times in recorded history, astronomers have confirmed an interstellar object passing through our neighborhood. Each arrival separated by years, each one a statistical outlier in a universe of repeating patterns. The odds are staggering. Billions of comets and asteroids shaped by the sun, yet only a handful ever trace a path that cannot be explained by any known planet or belt. The value of this moment is not measured in press releases or trending hashtags. It is measured in the way light bends through a foreign coma, in the chemistry that betrays a birthplace far colder or more violent than anything in our system, in the chance to watch a true outsider interact with a familiar planet. For a brief window, Mars, usually a backdrop for robotic explorers, becomes the solar system's best observatory. From its vantage, the geometry is perfect. The visitor's path sweeps within 30 million kilometers, close enough for orbiters to track subtle changes in brightness, color, and speed, far enough to avoid any risk to hardware. The world's science communities know what's at stake. Every previous interstellar object, Oumuamua in 2017, Borisov in 2019, left behind more questions than answers. Oumuamua tumbled out of sight before anyone could agree on its shape or even its true nature. Borisov, though more conventional, still challenged comet models with its composition and speed. Now, with a third candidate, the opportunity to compare, to test, to challenge old theories is in reach. The timing is razor thin. The Mars window opens for only a week, with the closest approach on October 3rd. After that, the comet slips toward the Sun, lost in the glare.
In exactly 48 hours, something extraordinary happens that NASA has been quietly preparing for. An object traveling at 137,000 miles per hour from another star system will pass within 29 million kilometers of Mars. But here's what they're not telling you. Harvard's Avi Loeb just rated this object a 6 out of 10 on his scale for potential alien technology. That's 60% confidence. It's not natural. And when you see what amateur astronomers just photographed, you'll understand why the scientific community is in absolute chaos. Because this isn't behaving like any comet we've ever seen. It's releasing pure nickel without iron. That's impossible in nature. It only happens in industrial manufacturing. Its chemistry is 16 times more extreme than any known comet. It turned from red to green overnight. And its trajectory has a 1 in 500 chance of being random. But here's where it gets terrifying. In late September, 3I Atlas disappears behind the Sun for 2 months. We won't be able to see it during its closest approach on October 30th. Loeb suggests this could be intentional to avoid observation when it's brightest, or when something else happens. Some scientists believe it may have already deployed invisible precursor probes, too small for Earth telescopes to detect, that could reach Mars while we're all watching the main object. Over 227 observatories worldwide have tracked this thing. They've compiled over 4,000 observations, and every single data point makes it stranger. At 33 billion tons, it shouldn't exist. The math doesn't work. We should have found 100,000 smaller objects before finding something this massive. So what the hell is 3I Atlas? In the next hour, I'm going to show you every anomaly, every leaked observation, and every theory scientists don't want to discuss publicly. Because after October 3rd, when those Mars spacecraft turn their cameras toward this thing, we might finally get answers. Or we might get something far more disturbing. If you're as fascinated by this as I am, hit that like button and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from, what time it is there, and the weirdest thing that ever happened to you. Chapter 1. Avi Loeb's shocking. 6 out of 10. Rating. Avi Loeb just did something that's sending shockwaves through astronomy. The Harvard astrophysicist who claimed Oumuamua might be alien tech back in 2017 has now rated 3I Atlas at 6 out of 10 on his scale for potential technological origins. That's 60% confidence this isn't natural. And before you roll your eyes, understand what changed his mind. It wasn't speculation. It was data from the James Webb Space Telescope, the Very Large Telescope in Chile, and Hubble, all showing things that shouldn't exist. Webb observed 3I Atlas on August 6th and found its gas plume is 95% carbon dioxide and only 5% water. That's 16 times more extreme than any known comet at that distance from the Sun. Comets are supposed to be water-rich. This one isn't. Then the VLT detected nickel in the gas plume. Strong, clear emission lines. But here's the kicker. No iron. None. In the entire history of observing space objects, nickel and iron always appear together. They're forged together in dying stars, expelled together in supernovas. Finding nickel without iron would be like finding smoke without fire. It doesn't happen in nature, but it happens all the time in industrial manufacturing. High-purity nickel alloys, aerospace components. The signature matches factory production, not cosmic debris. And the nickel production is increasing. When first detected in July, the emission rate was modest.
If you're keeping up with the 3I Atlas progression through our solar system, you should probably go check out Interstellar discussions, because he just realized that NASA decided to stop updating its live website. So with it at its closest to the moon, now that we can get a good look at it, they've actually shut down their website. They're no longer updating it. And we still don't have any images, by the way, in case you're wondering. We have no updated images of it as it's coming up to Mars. So, we've got the James Webb telescope. We've got all of these satellites that are out there, and no images, no updated images, which is pretty freaking suspicious, if you ask me. I mean, they were pretty excited about this. They were. It's this new interstellar object that's coming in. We're going to learn so many things, and yet nothing. Funny it is. think it's probably mobile time we start asking why we're getting nothing. It's pretty ridiculous. Anyways, go check out his page because that was great. I didn't know that was happening, and he just updated me. So, but yeah, and I'll put him down. Yeah, like I love you.
3i Atlas does not have that. So something is quite bizarre as it relates to 3i Atlas, in addition to some of the other factors I talked about, its inclination to the ecliptic plane, its speed, it's coming from roughly the direction that we had that WOW signal in 1977, only 9 degrees off. There's a whole bunch of oddities as it relates to this interstellar object. So this is what we have observationally. Around September 25th, let's look at an image that was taken on the 27th, which is after that coronal mass ejection impact. Now, the next two images of 3i Atlas were taken on September 27th and also October 2nd by a Mr. Romanoff. And this is probably the last good imagery that we're going to get of 3i Atlas. I'll link to his Twitter X in the video description. Go check him out. Here we see the image on September 27th. And so we see some other stars and things here, but this is 3i Atlas, and we see this zoomed up view of it there. So very low resolution, but at least it's something. And it's, you know, basically we see that it has this coma. It's not that large in his view, but it depends on what wavelength of light that you're looking at. So if you were to look infrared, this would show up much, much, much larger because of that diffuse dusty complex plasma coma surrounding it, whereas there's gas and ice and dust grains and ionized particles, plasma, that is making up this very large coma. That Sphere X image at about 700,000 kilometers across, half the diameter of the sun, that is expected to get bigger and bigger as it gets closer and closer to the sun, because the sun is going to be ionizing it more, heating it up more, causing it to off-gas more and then ionize. So it's likely even larger than that now. And as it gets close to Mars, we don't really know how that's going to interact with the planet. Very likely it doesn't interact in any spectacular way if it's just a normal interstellar object, but we really just don't know what this thing is. I think it's useful to look at all the different ideas and speculations, at least give them a fair shake before casting them out. I don't think it's a comet. I think it's an interstellar object, something of unknown characteristics, and we can't really just put that label of comet on it because it doesn't have that tail like we're seeing from A6 Lemon or from R2 Swan, which have these spectacular tails. It simply does not have that. So this is September 27th. After that coronal mass ejection impact, we don't see any notable changes to 3i Atlas afterwards. We weren't really expecting any. If it did have a long tail, then perhaps a coronal mass ejection impact to 3i Atlas could have broken off that tail and then changed the structure of it. But because it doesn't have that, it's not really that bizarre that it didn't really change much. The biggest change that I would expect is that it would ionize a bit more and perhaps its coma would expand. Let's see the latest image that we have from Mr. Romanoff on October 2nd. And here we have that latest imagery, two different views. This is the 3 raw stacked 60-second exposures, red, green, and blue. We see 3i Atlas right there. Honestly, I'm quite surprised that we were even able to get any Earth-based observations of 3i Atlas on October 2nd, because it's effectively now outside the ability to observe being so close to the sun. But this seems to be fairly good to me. Even though there's a lot of noise in the background, this looks legit. We also have then this color gradient on it, so to make it a little easier to see in the zoom in. And this is the same image, just put a color gradient on it. And so we see that coma clearly around it. And then this is likely a more dense coma, very unlikely for that to be the nucleus itself, but clearly showing up quite a bit brighter. So there are layers and structures to this thing, right? We saw that with the polarization data, where there were structures on the outside that had slightly different polarization than those closer in. We see that the coma is very, very large. 3i Atlas is just very, very anomalous. And that is why it's so important we get these observations on 3i Atlas from all these probes surrounding Mars, because A, they'll give us our highest resolution look yet at this interstellar object by a wide margin, and B, also provide a bunch of supportive evidence and data at the same time. So spectral data and more. But this US government shutdown It's really a big unknown whether that's going to affect things or not. Some people are saying that everything will continue on and that this is deemed an essential mission and that we will get these observations. But the websites are basically saying, hey, no one's working. We just had like 1.5 million United States workers furloughed, government employees. So everything's in flux right now, and the timing is really, really crazy. I personally don't believe in coincidence. Now, why we would have these two things align at the same time, the close approach of 3I Atlas with Mars and this government shutdown, that I can't tell you. I don't think it's a conspiracy, but I think it's very bizarre that we do have that alignment. It just really shows our own ineptitude, effectively. But thankfully, there are other organizations out there which are not shut down currently, like the European Space Agency. Let's look at what they're going to be doing today, October 3rd, as it relates to 3I Atlas. Here we have a graphic that was recently released by the ESA as it relates to their goal to observe 3I Atlas across time. They call it a comet. Again, I think it's an interstellar object. That is undeniable. The question of whether it's a comet or not is still up in the air. But the mainstream view is that it's a comet.
How convenient. Now that the red side in the US of A has shut down the country, how convenient. Right when 3I Atlas is the closest to Mars and all these government-funded space programs that could show us exactly what is happening and what is above us and what is out there is now conveniently shut down so none of us can see. How about that? So let's reiterate that information. Now that the red side have put a pause to government-funded programs for the unseen future, one of those programs is now we don't get to see the truth about what's in space. Why am I not surprised? But I'll give you a little hack. Other countries, they're not shut down, which means, like me, you can find the images online if you do a little bit of research and stop being lazy.
Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. Interstellar object 3I Atlas is now at its closest approach to Mars today, October 3rd, less than 0.2 astronomical units away from the red planet. And this is a critical time period to get observations of 3I Atlas from all the different probes that we have surrounding Mars. And well, it just so happens that there is a United States government shutdown in effect at this moment in time. So a bunch of different websites for NASA and social media pages and everything are all inactive, not being updated. Kind of odd and bizarre. I'm not going to comment on it more than that, but we do have this shutdown interfering with our ability to observe actually what is happening in our interstellar neighborhood. And with this object that is the most bizarre of any that we have ever observed, a lot of people think it may be some sort of technology or alien ship. It does have a variety of very weird features to it. The fact that it's so closely aligned to the ecliptic plane of the solar system, the fact that's traveling so fast at about 60 kilometers per second. It'll peak at about 68 kilometers per second during its perihelion, October 29th and the 30th. And that is, of course, if it actually gets there. Right now, we are limited in our ability to observe 3I Atlas from Earth because of the glare of the sun. So check that out. This right here is the superior conjunction of 3I Atlas as viewed from Earth. We also have another comet nearby here. This is R2 Swan. I've been talking about that. But if we go back in time to today, the 3rd of October, we see that it's still pretty much blocked out by the glare of the sun. We do have some recent images of 3I Atlas taken on October 2nd and also some on September 27th and September 25th. But at this moment in time, effectively now, it's going to be really difficult to get images of 3I Atlas because of the glare from the sun. And so it's critical that we get these images from Mars and these different probes. Luckily, we also have the European Space Agency. They're going to be taking a variety of observations and images of 3I Atlas during this closest approach and for the next couple of days. We also have some different spacecraft there. So thankfully, we're not dependent just on the United States government here. And in fact, we may already have observed 3I Atlas from Mars. So we have Mars Perseverance. And this was pointed out to me by someone on Twitter. I'll link that in the video description. Their name is Drew. and they noticed this streak in the Perseverance images. And while I took all the different images for that day, this is yesterday, October 2nd, and this is about 9 minutes of data, and we see this thing streaking across the sky. And this is very bizarre because we see the normal motion of the stars here. So Mars is rotating. So just like on Earth, it looks like the sky is moving. And when you perform an exposure photograph, let's say like 10 seconds or even longer, like a minute, something like that, you will get the stars to streak because it's capturing that motion over time. And so we see the normal motion of the night sky because of Mars rotation as a vertical elongation of these stars. Well, look at this. This thing is clearly not traveling in that normal motion. It's not some sort of artifact because it didn't just show up on one image. It showed up on all the images, and it's moving very quickly. This is 9 minutes of data going through here. So this is bizarre. And you also see that its elongation due to the exposure of the photograph is aligned with also the direction of travel that's going, which really indicates that this is something that was picked up. And we don't know what this was. This is October 2nd. So it makes sense that this would be 3I Atlas because of A, its speed, B, because of its very large size. The minimum diameter estimate now is kind of coalesced around 5 kilometers. We'll find out soon with some of these images from Mars if we get them, but it seems very likely that it's at least 5 kilometers across, if not even bigger. I'd put my money on bigger personally because a lot of amateur astronomers have been able to get fairly good images of 3I Atlas. It seems to be a big object, and we see it moving very quickly across the night sky during this closest approach. So we do have this imagery from the Perseverance rover, and this is going to be very low resolution compared to some of the other imagery and observations that we will be able to get from the different probes surrounding Mars. But this is what's happening right now. I'm checking all the FTP servers and different data feeds to try to get up-to-date imagery on this as soon as possible. But I have a feeling because of this government shutdown, we're going to have to wait. And I also just have a feeling that a lot of these different groups are going to take these images and they're going to process them. It's going to be at least a few days before we get anything, though I promise I'll keep you up to date. The moment there's a new release that is critical, I will release a video on it. I'll also be releasing updates on my Twitter X account. So that's at Stefan Burns Geo. But we do have some other images of 3I Atlas for the past week or so. Remember, it just got hit by coronal mass ejection around September 25th. So let's see how it has changed in the past week after that coronal mass ejection, if it has done so. And these are effectively the last images that we're going to get of 3I Atlas as observed from Earth. Here we have the first recent image that we're going to look at of 3I Atlas taken on September 25th, 2025 by Gerald Raymond and Michael Yeager. And this was observed from Namibia, Africa. This is probably the best image of the lot, but it's the one furthest back in time. And this was right before that coronal mass ejection impact to 3I Atlas. But here we see it has that green color. This is in the optical band. And we see it also has that anti-tail that's sunward facing. So still showing a lot of anomalous characteristics and basically showing up very bright and quite large in this image. And it doesn't have that typical tail that you see with other comets. So there's a bunch of other comets right now flying around the inner solar system or nearby, and they have these super long, dazzling tails. 3I Atlas does not have that. So something is quite bizarre as it relates to 3I Atlas, in addition to some of the other factors I talked about, its inclination to the ecliptic plane, its speed, it's coming from roughly the direction that we had that WOW signal in 1977, only 9 degrees off. There's a whole bunch of oddities as it relates to this interstellar object. So this is what we have observationally around September 25th. Let's look at an image that was taken on the 27th, which is after that coronal mass ejection impact. Now, the next two images of 3I Atlas were taken on September 27th and also October 2nd by a Mr. Romanoff. And this is probably the last good imagery that we're going to get of 3I Atlas. I'll link to his Twitter X in the video description. Go check him out. Here we see the image on September 27th. And so we see some other stars and things here, but this is 3I Atlas, and we see this zoomed up view of it there. So very low resolution, but at least it's something. And it's, basically we see that it has this coma. It's not that large in his view, but it depends on what wavelength of light that you're looking at. So if you were to look infrared, this would show up much, much, much larger because of that diffuse, dusty, complex plasma coma surrounding it, whereas there's gas and ice and dust grains and ionized particles, plasma, that is making up this very large coma. That CRX image at about 700,000 kilometers across, half the diameter of the sun, that is expected to get bigger and bigger as it gets closer and closer to the sun, because the sun is going to be ionizing it more, heating it up more, causing it to off-gas more and then ionize. So it's likely even larger than that now. And as it gets close to Mars, we don't really know how that's going to interact with the planet. Very likely it doesn't interact in any spectacular way if it's just a normal interstellar object, but we really just don't know what this thing is. I think it's useful to look at all the different ideas and speculations, at least give them a fair shake before casting them out. I don't think it's a comet. I think it's an interstellar object, something of unknown characteristics, and we can't really just put that label of comet on it because it doesn't have that tail like we're seeing from A6 Lemon or from R2 Swan, which have these spectacular tails. It simply does not have that. So this is September 27th. After that coronal mass ejection impact, we don't see any notable changes to 3I Atlas afterwards. We weren't really expecting any. If it did have a long tail, then perhaps a coronal mass ejection impact to 3I Atlas could have broken off that tail and then changed the structure of it. But because it doesn't have that, it's not really that bizarre that it didn't really change much. The biggest change that I would expect is that it would ionize a bit more and perhaps its coma would expand. Let's see the latest image that we have from Mr. Romanoff on October 2nd. And here we have that latest imagery, two different views. This is the 3 raw stacked 60-second exposures, red, green, and blue. We see 3I Atlas right there. Honestly, I'm quite surprised that we were even able to get any Earth-based observations of 3I Atlas on October 2nd, because it's effectively now out. And that is available at earthevolution.com/store. Thanks so much.
So you think just because the government shut down, we're not going to keep tracking the 3I Atlas? Of course we are. If we were going to be extinct like the dinosaurs, we wouldn't just stop tracking the damn thing just because we shut down the government. They're still doing it. And there's been plenty of alien whistleblowers talking about how there's been multiple different countries that have multiple conglomerated bases, basically conjoined bases where they work together. China, France, Russia, Germany, Australia, Canada, the Netherlands, all of them, the United States, working together so that they can track alien ships. So why wouldn't they be tracking some planet killer potentially, right? So don't worry. We're still tracking it. Just because they're saying NASA went dark and NASA turned off the space cam or whatever, that is a little fishy, I gotta say. But I think there's probably a reason for it. Is it because it's coming our way? It's still got a long way to go. It's only by Mars. It's not even in our neck of the woods yet. I mean, I guess you could say, well, Mars is close to us, but hasn't even made it to close to the moon. And it's just not gonna hit us, right? Right?
NASA has shut down its public feeds during the biggest moment yet for 3I Atlas, and UFO chats are going wild. Some say it's to hide proof the object's artificial, others think it's tied to generals meeting in Virginia or even to NASA's rumored asteroid nuking plan to protect the moon. Sounds like a sci-fi thriller, but here's what's actually happening. Yes, NASA is under a federal shutdown. More than 15,000 staff are furloughed. Public outreach and some live feeds are paused. That's the boring truth. But that doesn't mean 3I Atlas vanished. Ground-based observatories, the European Southern Observatory and independent astronomers are still tracking it. The James Webb and Hubble still run. They're just not pushing every frame to the public in real time. If you want to see updates, check the Minor Planet Center, the Virtual Telescope Project, or big astronomy blogs. They're already posting new images. So while the conspiracies are juicy, the more likely reason for the blackout is budget politics, not aliens. But it does make you wonder, if this really is the most mysterious interstellar visitor we've ever seen, why does the public feed go dark now? But more importantly, is this a mostly true alien story or not?
We need to save ourselves.
We have a big update here It's October 1st, new day of the month, and people are wondering what to make of the news right now. Everyone is very worried about President Trump's well-being and what's going on with him. I mean, after his speech the other day, it went on for many people's opinions for far too long and did not seem coherent. He's talking about bringing back battleships and nuclear deals and making people sign treaties, but it did not seem concise. And for a president that ran on being the anti-war president, there was a whole lot of discussions of war. So that has people shook up. We're still awaiting news on this update with Atlas 3I. Apparently there is like hundreds of these cluster objects surrounding this asteroid Atlas 3I. And NASA is concerned, Harvard scientists are concerned, saying, where do these objects come from and what are they trying to do? Is it a safety threat to Earth? We're going to find out.
What's happening right now is something out of a science fiction movie, but it's real. The most mysterious object ever to enter our solar system, 3I Atlas, is less than 8 million miles from Earth and closing fast. We're talking a cosmic blink of an eye away. And yet NASA, our very own space agency, has gone completely silent. What's going on here? You know something's up when NASA, famous for its transparency, suddenly stops talking. Just 3 weeks ago, they were giving us daily updates, press conferences, and expert interviews. But overnight, silence. Every briefing canceled, the live feeds cut, and NASA's response? No comment at this time. So, what's NASA not telling us? Here's the kicker. Military satellites have been repositioned to track Atlas 24/7. That's right. They're watching it constantly. Emergency protocols, typically reserved for nuclear threats, are quietly in place. And what's worse, restricted airspace zones have appeared over major cities with zero explanation. You know what this screams? Something is happening that they don't want us to know. But wait, it gets even crazier. As soon as the blackout hit, all space agencies, NASA, ESA, China, Russia, stopped communicating about Atlas. When the whole world's space programs, who usually compete like crazy, suddenly coordinate a blackout. That's not normal. It's like they've all agreed to keep something terrifying under wraps. A former NASA official even said there are only 3 scenarios that justify a communications blackout like this. 1, an imminent collision with Earth. 2, hostile military tech. Or 3, confirmation of extraterrestrial life. Now let's talk about the real mindbender. Atlas's behavior. It was supposed to just zip by Earth and continue its journey out into interstellar space. But guess what? Its trajectory has shifted. It's curving inward, as if it's being steered. Oh, and those strange electromagnetic signals? They've increased by 300 times. Something is broadcasting, and it's strong enough to mess with satellite communication. But that's just the beginning. Amateur astronomers have spotted something even weirder. They're seeing lights on the surface of Atlas. Structured lights, repeating in regular intervals, definitely not random ice crystals. And then a video surfaced showing what looks like a grid of lights activating across its surface, lasting 47 minutes before dimming. But before you could blink, the video was deleted by government agencies. This object is no longer just a floating rock. It's moving deliberately, like it's preparing for something or someone. Atlas is getting closer and closer, and it's sending out smaller objects which are aligning into a perfect heptagon around it. Are these drones, communication relays, or something else? With just 3 weeks to go until its closest approach, Atlas is looking less like an object and more like an intelligent craft. NASA may have stopped talking, but independent scientists and astronomers are still making observations. And the truth is, they've found even more anomalies. The closer Atlas gets, the more it seems like a reconnaissance mission. Something or someone is preparing for something big. Are we on the brink of first contact, or is there a bigger threat we're not being told about? One thing's for sure, time is running out, and the truth.
Okay. So, as you can see, they have turned everything off. So, y'all, a lot of people feel that whatever it is, they know it's something that will potentially scare the public. That's why they switched everything off. You would think, even if it is a government shutdown, they would want to observe anything like an anomaly, out here floating around. They would want to know what it is. And the fact that they switched everything off that could really pick up what it looks like, that says it all right there. Whatever it is, they're in fear of it. Big time, you know, which makes me even more determined to find websites where they do regular updates. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be looking at regular updates out there. I'm not going to let America and their little foolishness stop me from seeing what's out there. I'm going to see. I don't care. So, y'all, let me thank some people here. All right. Loretta Jamba Mia, thank you for the super sticker. And Mr. Soulful, thank you for the super sticker. Dark Skin Brother, thank you for the 10 memberships. I deeply appreciate it. James Mitchell, thank you for the super sticker. And Dark Skin Brother, thank you for the super chat. They would love for it to curb and not come to earth. The Most High about to curb a boot firmly to their behinds. Yep. Whatever it is, that's why I said, and thank you, Dark Skin Brother, for your support for my channel. That's why I'm saying, y'all, whatever it is, it's scaring them. It's scaring them enough to be instructed to turn all of the satellites and the probes they got around Mars off. And it's headed towards Mars. And they said, I was reading, if NASA didn't go dark, they would have been able to get great shots of it. But I think they don't want them, so they don't have to worry about those shots getting leaked out. But like I said, there's other sources. And like they were saying, China got their own satellites up there and cameras. And so do some of the European nations. They also have that. So, we still got options, y'all. We still got options. We don't have to necessarily let this government shutdown stop anything. Okay, MC2, the X Project, thank you for the 20-month membership. Sister Lisa, do you think they're going to quietly try to attack it and not tell us because they're in fear of it, retaliating on them? You know what I did hear, and this was a week ago, that they were saying maybe we should nuke it. Yeah, but wouldn't you be afraid that it can attack you back? And I don't think it's good to nuke anything, because anything can go wrong and you may end up nuking yourself. You don't know what that thing is made of. And you don't know what weaponry may be on those spaceships. And how do you know a nuke would reach it? How do you know they would knock that nuke out of the sky or knock it back down to Earth? You don't even know who you're dealing with. Whatever's in 3I Atlas, they don't even know what they're dealing with. You're just assuming you can attack that ship. And what can it do to Earth? Can it even target people? What if it targets Washington, D.C.? I mean, seriously, they don't know. They don't know. But I think in order for them to switch everything off and refuse to give updates and not even talk about it no more, they're definitely afraid of what it is. That's my opinion. They're afraid of whatever it is, and something about it, they are very afraid, because we have had comets come shooting in the solar system all the time. And I have never seen them shut off cameras and satellites and everything. I have never seen them do that before. Usually, if it's a comet, it just passes right through. And they may even show it going behind the sun, because I've seen them do that with a couple of them. And they never switched anything off. Now, all of a sudden, with this massive ship coming, they conveniently switched everything off. And I would not doubt if they make an attempt to attack it, but I'm just saying, I wouldn't think something would just let itself be attacked. I believe if they did attack it, that thing is going to attack back. And then what are they going to do then? And like I said, what if you do shoot a nuke at it? What if it deflects the nuke and the nuke comes back down to Earth? Now you done killed all of us. Okay, you done killed all of us. So, I mean, come on. And a lot of people feel these are the angels coming. And do you really think if potentially if it was the angels coming, you think they're going to let the United States nuke it? I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, it changes trajectory, and it also keeps changing speeds. If you notice that too, the speed on it, every time I turn around when I'm listening to it, it seems like the speed of it is always changing. It slows down, it speeds up, it goes faster, you know? So it's showing you right there, it's unpredictable. It's unpredictable. And I think they're saying, oh, it's going to go past Mars and go past Venus and then Jupiter, and then it leaves the solar system. But I don't think they're 100% sure about that. That's why everything is switched off. As it's getting closer to Mars, they don't want anything to be seen. Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you, B. Smurth. Yeah, they had a big meeting with the generals. Yes, I did hear about that. They did at the Pentagon. They had a big meeting. And I did hear about that. And, the way I see it, it could have been about this whole thing, which I think it was. We don't know what kind of weaponry 3I Atlas have, but I'm sure it's probably something a lot more sophisticated than anything we got here on Earth. At least that's my guess. Mhm. You're right, dark skinned brother. All those generals, and they just had conveniently had a meeting, and on top of that, had the meeting during the shutdown. This is when they had the big meeting during the shutdown. Yeah. So what I heard this morning, it's supposed to reach Mars by the end of this week. So by the end of this week, it's going to reach Mars. And then around the 29th, it's going to reach the sun. No, it definitely is something to this meeting during the government shutdown. Absolutely. I do believe that. Mm-hmm. So they probably put together some kind of strategy just in case this thing comes to Earth, which I know that's what they're afraid of. It can change direction at any time. Hmm. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. I'm going to work on getting the one on the pastor. Maybe I'll put something up in the next 2-3 hours on that one. So I hope to see you all back then. And thank you so much for being here. And if you can't come back, please enjoy the rest of your day. Shalom, family.